Well, now to new sanctions on Venezuela's leaders by President Trump. He says he plans to seize more oil tankers like the one taken this week, and that land operations could eventually start, in his words, pretty soon. Charlie D'Agata has more.
They've treated us badly, and I guess now we're not treating them so good.
President Trump says the seizure of a large tanker off the coast of Venezuela was not just about the oil, citing illegal migration and drug trafficking from the South American country, again vowing to ratchet up the military fight beyond just strikes on alleged drug boats at sea.
It's going to be starting on land pretty soon.
Sources say the administration is also planning more tanker seizures.
We're not going to stand by and watch sanctioned vessels sail the seas with black market oil, the proceeds of which will fuel narco-terrorism of rogue and illegitimate regimes around the world.
The seized tanker, the Skipper, was boarded by U.S. Special Forces Wednesday. It's now headed to an American port, and the White House says investigators are gathering evidence and interviewing the crew. On Thursday, the Treasury Department also stepped up sanctions against the Maduro regime, including targeting 3 of his wife's nephews, a businessman affiliated with him, and 6 shipping companies operating in the country's oil sector, which is the chief revenue stream for Venezuela's teetering economy.
I am very hopeful Venezuela will be free.
It comes as President Maduro's top critic, recent Nobel Peace Prize winner Maria Corina Machado, arrived in Norway. She'd been snuck out of Venezuela, where she had been hiding in a daring 16-hour secret mission, including a harrowing boat ride captained by former U.S. Special Ops soldier Brian Stern, who spoke with CBS's Lilia Luciano.
It was dangerous. It was scary. The sea conditions were ideal for us, but certainly not water that you would want to be on. Certainly not. That's why it was advantageous to us. The higher the waves, the harder it is for radar to see. That's how it works.
Russian President Vladimir Putin had a phone call with President Maduro where he expressed his support for Maduro and his solidarity with the people of Venezuela. Charlie D'Agata, CBS News, Washington.
Joining us now is Ryan Berg, the director of the CSIS Americas Program. Thanks so much for being with us, Ryan. Going back to the seizure of that oil tanker earlier this week, it was done in such dramatic fashion with special forces descending on the tanker. Charlie D'Agata just reported that the administration is planning to seize even more oil tankers. Is this, though, about drugs, oil, or is it really about hitting Maduro, where it hurts the most, frankly, the country's finances?
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me on. I think the mission has evolved now to the point where we can talk openly about this being a full-blown pressure campaign against the Maduro regime. President Trump has been asked multiple times about Maduro, and he said, I think 3 times to my count now, that his days are numbered. That to me says that the rhetoric and the justification for the pressure campaign has moved well beyond counter-narcotics, although a central focus of it, of course, remains counter-narcotics and the regime's involvement quite deep in drug trafficking. Where this goes from here, I think this is just another bad week in Nicolas Maduro's many, many bad weeks. Not only did Maria Corina Machado have this daring escape out of the country, but also you have Maduro now having to contend with seized tankers, which hit directly against his revenue streams. These are revenues that Maduro needs to be able to pay off people in his regime and stay in power. The Trump administration seems to be aiming directly at the revenue streams now to complement some of the military pressure.
I want to talk about Machado in just a moment here, but first I want to ask you about the role Russia plays into all of this. Vladimir Putin expressed his support for the Maduro regime and the Venezuelan people, but this tanker could possibly also have ties to Russia. Can you explain that?
That's right. This tanker is kind of the perfect intersection of at least 3 or 4 issues that really matter for the Trump administration. First, the oil was Venezuelan. Second, we think the destination was Cuba, a longtime ally of Venezuela, providing the intelligence muscle and the secret police muscle within Venezuela. Third, this tanker was sanctioned in 2022 for its connections to Hezbollah and the IRGC. And number 4 is, as you alluded, the shadowy Russian oil magnate who could in fact be the owner of this tanker. And so in many ways, this tanker was the perfect target because it's the intersection of all those things. Now, the Russians, in this case, seem to me to be completely occupied in Ukraine and not willing to put much support into the Maduro regime. Rhetorically, of course, they've supported Maduro, but what we've seen in the last months as he's come under tremendous pressure is very little support other than rhetorical.
I want to get back to Machado here now. Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado. She is crediting President Trump for supporting Venezuelan pro-democracy movement there. She even dedicated her Nobel Peace Prize to him. Now, Machado actually spoke exclusively with Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan for her first interview with the U.S. television station, and we have a preview.
I'm not going to give more information regarding my trip to Norway, but what am I going to say how important it is for the Venezuelan people. This is a recognition to a nation that has fought tirelessly, courageously against a criminal narco-terrorist structure. And I came to receive that prize, that award, and I'm going to bring it back home to the Venezuelan people as soon as possible.
You say you're going back home. I know you sent your own children out of Venezuelan territory in order to protect them. Your sons, your daughter. I read you hadn't even seen your daughter in 16 months. That's an incredible sacrifice for anyone. Are they concerned that you plan to return to Venezuela? When are you going?
Well, of course, they are concerned as any other Venezuelan child that has their parents or relatives back in our country, because the regime, as I said, has persecuted, tortured, killed, disappeared thousands of Venezuelans. And recently it has turned even more violent because, you know, when a criminal regime is falling apart and they know their days are numbered, they turn even more aggressive, even more violent.
Ryan, this is interesting because in an interview with the BBC earlier this week, she actually dodged the question about what she thought about Washington's attacks on these alleged drug vessels. How much does her support, you think, impact the Trump administration's strategy here?
Well, I think for the Venezuelan opposition, they always have to work with the U.S. administration. They worked with the Biden administration. They're working now with the Trump administration. The U.S. has been a supporter of the Venezuelan opposition for a long time, and they have to work with the pieces of the puzzle according to our democratic elections. So what I can tell you is that the opposition is incredibly grateful for the pressure campaign that is being put on the Maduro regime, because it's not only highlighting their cause internationally, but it's also making him quite paranoid, and in fact thinking about making an exit from the country, which of course opens up the potential for a democratic transition.
Ryan Berg, thank you so much. Always great to talk to you and get your insights to all this.